Hello everyone, Dakoba here, and welcome back to Satisfactory. Previously, we had started construction on our steel factory, which is rising above our starter base. And we managed to move through some of our early steel production lines, so we're making all of the steel beams, steel pipes, and encased industrial beams that we're going to need going forward. Today, we're going to take that factory and expand it to include all of the rest of the steel-based products. That's stators, rotors, motors, as well as versatile frameworks and automated wiring, which are our Phase 2 space elevator components. We'll finish out the episode by using those components to actually send off our space elevator and open up Phase 3 of the game. However, before we get into that, we have a problem to solve. During construction, we started to run dangerously low on power, so our first task today is going to be to expand our power infrastructure by unlocking the expanded power infrastructure milestone and using that plus our other new buildables like our Mark II miners to construct a brand new coal power plant, which will give us all the power we need until we're able to unlock more robust fuel options in the next phase of the game. Now, before we get started, I do want to make one quick announcement, and that is that on this Friday, July 18th, which should be the day after this video releases, I'm going to be doing a live stream on YouTube from about 6 p.m. Central Time to about 10 p.m. Central Time. And we are going to be using that live stream to begin our next episode to unlock and start playing around with oil and plastic and rubber and possibly even some fuel power. We might also be doing some exploring and maybe even playing some other games. So mark your calendars and feel free to pop in. I would love to play some Satisfactory with you. And of course, if you are unable to make the stream, then the VOD will be posted for anybody who is sort of playing along and wants to see that part of the game, and we'll cover the highlights of it in our next episode. Now we're going to get started with today's episode by sending off the expanded power infrastructure milestone. Fortunately, we have all of the items we need for this. It's simply a matter of loading them up and sending off our drop pod. Now, the expanded power infrastructure milestone is going to serve a couple of major purposes for us. The big thing that it's going to give us are these power towers. These have a couple of really interesting features. The most important of which for us right now is that they allow power to stretch much further. We can demonstrate this. If we try and draw out a normal power pole, we can only go about 40 meters with it. And we can see that stretched out to right about there. That's the maximum distance. However, with a power tower, we can go much, much further, as you can see here. Actually, let's move that one so that it's not in the middle of a poison cloud, because that could go very badly for us during our next demonstration. Grab that up and just put it right up here on the hill. Now, the other thing is that power towers are very useful for zip lining. This is going to allow us to get around quite a bit faster, because with a normal power line, you need to jump around the towers. And while you can do that, it is much more mentally taxing to consistently make the jump around the power poles. And we can demonstrate that here. Like this. If you miss it, you need to correct. So power towers make it much, much simpler and much easier to zip line across long distances for your factory. So that is the other big advantage they're going to be of use for us. Now we're going to start by running a power line out to a location I've chosen over on the eastern coast of the map, over on the eastern edge near the Dune Desert, which has a couple of coal nodes that we're going to tap for a coal power plant. Now, in order to take the resources we need out there, we're going to be using a little trick of the game. And that's something I want to show you guys real quick. And this is something that's new in 1.1 and is tremendously useful whenever you need to move a large number of resources. So over here in our courtyard, I have set up 3 storage containers just full of all kinds of random stuff. I've got our inventory dumped in there, and plus tons of materials that we're going to need for this plant. And what we're going to do is we're going to place another item of any kind, another buildable somewhere in the world, And we're going to transfer all of those items from those storage containers to wherever we place this buildable. So for example, say we want to do it right there. What we can do is come on over here to our storage containers and dismantle them, or select them with the dismantle filter. And you can see that puts on the screen all of the different items, thousands and thousands of concrete and cabling and all sorts of other stuff. And then if we also dismantle the wall while we're standing next to it, it will create a dismantle crate that contains all of those items. Every single thing that couldn't fit in our inventory is now here in this crate. And so we can use this technique once we have some kind of buildable out where we want to build. We'll only need to make a single sort of return trip in order to transport all of these items out to the site we've chosen. Now, the last thing I want to do before we head out there is decide on a new color scheme. I've been looking at our bright green factories and they're starting to wear on my eyes just a little bit. So I think we're going to tone things down a little bit. And I haven't decided. I think what I might do is adapt a different color swatch to a slightly different tone of green. Like there, and then possibly do this one as maybe like a charcoal green, but more of a olive drab, something like that perhaps, and use that, which still keeps that green look, but is a little bit easier on the eyes. I might play around with that more. I'm not quite a big fan of, not the biggest fan of this particular shade of green, so I'll play around with that a little bit more. But I also think that after we get our steel tower constructed today, we're going to be transitioning to a different swatch, and I am going to be using this light blue and white one. I think that's what I'm going to use for the power plant today as well. So in order to set that as our default, we can go ahead and right click on that swatch, set it as the active swatch for our standard. That's our buildings, our vehicles, and our pipes. And that will make it so that whenever we build something new like a wall, that it will come in that blue color. Now it is worth noting that if you use the picker, like if we want to select this wall and place it right there, it will actually retain the color swatch of the item we were picking from. So that's a cool feature that allows us to, correct mistakes in our base or temporarily tear down something like these walls if we want to add some new construction there and rebuild easily at a later time. But for now, I think it is time for us to head out to the coast, get started on our brand new power plant. All right, and that is a coal power plant all complete. And I have to say, I am very, very pleased with how this one turned out. I had a basic idea of the shape that I wanted this power plant to be in, but it turned out much better than I expected, and I'm very, very happy with it. I do want to go through a few details and ideas of the build, as well as the location I chose, so that we can talk about it. Now this is going to be providing power for us for the next stage of the game. At least it may stay here forever, but it might also be a situation where we divert this coal at a later time. Coal becomes quite valuable later on, and we might want it for another purpose later once our power needs are satisfied by other late game power options like rocket fuel or nuclear. But for now, this will work well for us. Now, in order to provide for this plant, we do have two Mark II miners on these two coal nodes here. One of them is a normal node, so that is heavily overclocked in order to get us to the 270 coal we need. And the other one is a pure node, so that is overclocked, so that is providing 240 by default. But again, you can tell by the whitish blue light there that it is slightly overclocked to get us to a maximum, to maximize our Mark III belts at 270. Now, 270 coal can provide for 18 generators, and so that's what we have on each side. And each pair of generators, every two, is being fed water by a single water extractor set to 75% clock speed. This is the most efficient way to provide water for the coal generators, and will ensure that they have no shortage of water and can continue running for a long time. Now, to distribute the coal to the generators, I am running the coal into each of these structures on either side, which then use conveyor lifts to send the coal into all the different generators via a manifold. And I have to say that I'm very pleased with how this looks, how it's turned out, and the power production that we are getting from this. It has boosted us to 2,700 megawatts of power. So that's what we're getting just from this plant. This isn't currently hooked up to our power grid back home. That's going to be done just over here, and we can go ahead and do that. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about this location. And I chose this location thinking that I would probably be building something a little bit bigger. And the reason for that is because there are a couple more coal nodes just over here. You can just see one right there and right there, but those are both impure nodes, and so they would be quite tricky to work with, and they don't provide a ton of coal. Now, if we can get a peek over the hill, yes, right there. So there's 3 more coal nodes right there, and I also thought about using those, but it would be quite a build in order to provide a nice looking and neat way to move those resources over here as well. So I decided to leave those as well. Now, there was one other option I was considering, and that's going to be located over here in the MAM, and that is compacted coal. And ultimately, I think it's important to talk a little bit about the math behind compacted coal. See, what compacted coal does is it effectively lets you burn sulfur as a fuel type, and we happen to have a sulfur node right nearby, so we can pop on up here and take a look at it. It is right there. So that sulfur node is very close by. We could absolutely transport that down and join it with our coal to produce compacted coal. However, the problem with compacted coal is that if we look at it, we can see that it has an energy value of just 630 megajoules. Now, coal has an energy value of 300 megajoules all on its own, and compacted coal is made from 1 coal and 1 sulfur. And what this means is that if we subtract the 300 megajoules from the coal, that gives us a value for the sulfur of 330 megajoules. However, it's not that simple. This counts as an alternate recipe, which means it needs to be crafted in a production machine, in this case, an assembler. And an assembler, in order to run an assembler for the time it takes to produce 1 compacted coal, will consume 36 megajoules of energy, which means that our net value of sulfur actually drops below the 300 of coal. Therefore, it is never mathematically beneficial to burn sulfur as long as you have coal to use. And since we have all the coal we need in this area, I elected not to use the compacted coal for this. Now, this recipe does have some really important uses later on. It is a component for turbo fuel and all of the fuel types that are unlocked via that progression chain. And so we will be making extensive use of it later on, but it is not mathematically sensible to burn sulfur using the compacted coal recipe instead of simply burning more coal. So I elected to stick with this plan. Now these 2,700 megawatts of power are going to be plenty for us. That should just about triple our current power production. That should more than triple our current power production. If we take a look at it, we're going from 1,200 previously to 3,900 now. So substantially more power available to us and plenty to see us through the rest of this phase and until we can start setting up fuel power plant in the next phase. So I think we can go ahead and say that this power plant is complete, at least for now. I do have some ideas for how I might want to light it up and decorate it once I get some more signs and things we can do with this sort of large blank wall here. But I'm very pleased with where we're at right now. So let's head on back towards base and take a look at our next task. Now, one of the things that happened during this build that I removed in post for the time lapse was that I actually ran out of resources, despite the vast number of resources that I had brought out. That was a very big build, and I ran out twice actually. It had to make the long trip home. Unfortunately, the power poles make that a much shorter trip. It's only about a minute and a half to go between the power plant and home, or rather, it's a minute and a half to go from the power plant to the starter base. It's only about a minute to come in the other direction because it's an uphill versus downhill situation. You go faster going downhill, and so the space elevator and the starter base are at a higher elevation, and so we have a faster net speed on the way towards the plant. So only about 2.5 to 3 minutes round trip, but even still, that was not my favorite part of the game, and so we are going to turn our attention to something else that is critically important for us to be looking into, and that is dimensional depots. Now, we talked a little bit about dimensional depots in a previous episode, and during our live stream when we found SAM ore. And today we are going to go ahead and unlock dimensional depots. Now, we aren't going to be going to the SAM ore cave that we had identified near the lake to the south of our base. Instead, during the construction of our power plant, I had done a scan for SAM ore and found that there was some very close by. And let's see, I think this is where we want to branch out to get it. So let's do a scan here and see if we can find it. And if we open up our map, I think it's right next to our power plant. We're right over here. Right there, yes. Okay, now, I had actually looked all around on the cliffs and up on the hill for this, so I think this is actually going to be located in a cave, and the entrance, I'm guessing, is probably right here, but it might be over in this area. But we're going to find that cave and tap that SAM ore in order to get some new toys and goodies and get the dimensional depot unlocked. All right, unfortunately, I forgot to bring resources for setting up an outpost for the SAM ore. All right, we are back, and this time we have resources. Let's go ahead and open up our map, and let's go ahead and do another scan just so we can remember precisely where it was. I think it was over right around here somewhere. What we're going to do is we're going to select a stamp for it and place the stamp right on top of it, and then go ahead and highlight that stamp. That'll give us a beacon in the world so we know precisely which direction to head in. We will take out and draw out a power line to get us at least part of the way over there. We may wait until we get a little bit closer to extend further in case we need to go into that canyon instead of up on the hill. But I think we're going to start up here on the hill. And let's see, we forgot to bring ammunition, so hopefully we don't find ourselves in too much of a dangerous situation. The beacon we're looking for. I think there has to be a cave or something along here. Like there's a Mercer sphere up there. Oh, okay. Okay. We have an alpha hog. It's one of the ones that throws rocks. Yeah. All right. Okay. Oh, and we have an alpha spit. Okay. This is a dangerous situation. All right. Let's see what we can do. Fortunately, I did bring my my nutritional inhalers. I did not equip them, and we're very low on health. Ooh. Oh. All right. Hog is down. Just the spitter left. All right. Nice and easy, just like we planned it. That was nothing to worry about there at all. But we got some good remains out of it. We got a purple power slug out of it. Looks like there's another Mercer sphere up there on the hill we'll be able to grab here in a minute. And I think I see a cave. So does this cave have our SAM ore that we're looking for? Hop on down, and it does. I can see it right there. That is beautiful. Is everything I ever wanted it to be. All right, let's go ahead and bring power in here and get a miner set up. Now, in order to bring power here, we're going to go ahead and use the long power towers. But a cool trick we can use is actually to place one of them as sort of the starting point, because that will give us a much longer reach on our power lines. When we want to extend out, we can go much, much further if we're starting from one of these power towers. And we'll be able to much more easily connect to our more distant one. So for example, if we try and select our power line, we can't reach that power tower to select it, but we can reach this one. And while we have the long distance power line selected, we have no trouble reaching that distant one. So we don't need to run quite as far to get over there. There's another Mercer sphere right in here. This one seems like a trap. More danger in here. Yep. It's okay. Lots of baby stingers. Fortunately, they aren't too bad, as long as you know they're there. Only when you get swarmed in a dark cave and don't know what you're up against or how many, where they're coming from. But more Mercer spheres means more dimensional depots, so I will absolutely take as many of those as I can find. All right, let's go ahead and get this power down into the cave. All right, now, unfortunately, I did forget to bring some miners or some iron. Gosh. Iron ore. Oh, here we go again. So what do you guys do? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. What do you do when you find a situation in a game that is 100% your own fault and is so frustrating? How do you handle that? How do you de-stress? How do you cope? I find that it's really helpful to turn the power off, to disconnect, to go touch grass, as they say, or to go sit by a lake or some body of water. Helps get my mind right. Anyways, let me know in the comments how you handle this kind of situation. All right, once more into the cave. And this time I made sure to fill my to-do list and bring everything we're going to need. So, only once. Or twice, or 3 times. Shame on you. All right, let's go ahead and bring power in here. Get this set up, hooked up to our miner. Run our conveyor belts to a constructor. Set up a MAM to see what we need to do next. All right, now the dimensional depots are located in the alien technology tree, and we need to unlock SAM reanimation. That'll allow us to craft reanimated SAM. That is going to be a component in the SAM fluctuator. Now, fortunately, we have tons of resources, so we should be able to unlock the SAM fluctuator very quickly, very easily. And we can even start doing that here in our constructor. Now, this is going to take 120 SAM per minute to produce 30 reanimated SAM. This is an impure node, so even with a Mark II miner, we're only getting 60. Fortunately, we have some power shards, and so boom, we can get 120, no problem. So that should start giving us a small stockpile of reanimated SAM. And that is what our main goal in here is going to be, is just building up a stockpile of reanimated SAM, and then actually unlocking our first dimensional depot with our Mercer spheres, so that we can place the reanimated SAM we're gathering here into the dimensional depot, which we'll be able to access from our inventory anywhere. So we have our first 10, should give us access to the SAM fluctuators. There we go. Beautiful. And now we're just going to need to wait for our stockpile to build up a little bit so that we can get the 11 SAM fluctuators to make our dimensional depot. And from there, we'll be able to explore the rest of this tree from anywhere, because we have easy access to both wire and steel pipes, which are the other ingredients here. All right, we have our SAM fluctuators, so we can go ahead and unlock the dimensional depot and the dimensional depot uploader. Now, the dimensional depot uploader is located in the organization tab with all of our storages, and it's going to take 10 more SAM fluctuators in order to build our first one. Let's go ahead and let the resources for that stockpile. And while we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about the alien technology tree and some of the things we're going to be looking for here. Now, beneath the dimensional depot, there are three upgrade paths. The middle one is probably the most important. That will allow us to manually upload from our inventory. This is going to be huge, but it's also going to require computers, which we've had zero luck finding at drop pods or from lizard doggos, and we don't have unlocked yet, so we can't get too far into that. The other two just require Mercer spheres and the SAM fluctuators. Now, the upload upgrade increases the speed at which we can upload. By default, right now, we can only upload 15 items per minute. For things that we use a lot of, like belt materials or concrete, that is tremendously slow. So we'll definitely want to upgrade this just as soon as we have enough fluctuators for it. Or the other side is the depot expansion. Currently, we can only store one stack of items. So for concrete, that's going to be 500 items. For something like modular frames, that's just 50. And each sort of upgrade tier on the left-hand side of this tree will expand the stack count by 1, so up to a total of 5 stacks. On the right-hand side, we see the upgrade speed, so we'll be able to upgrade to 30 a minute, 60 a minute, 120 a minute, and then 240 items per minute. Now, for now, I think I'm going to prioritize just getting a single upgrade on each of those, but I'm not actually going to do that on camera. I think it's just whenever once we have a dimensional depot set up here, I'll be able to craft these SAM fluctuators wherever I'm at. The crafting benches can draw from our dimensional depot, and so the reanimated SAM will just sort of naturally count as being in our inventory all the time. So I'll just, whenever I happen to pass by a crafting bench, I'll craft up as many SAM fluctuators as our storage within the dimensional depot will allow. And so then when I have enough fluctuators, I'll be able to unlock one of those upgrades and increase the speed at which we can make more of those until we're in a position to properly automate those production chains. But the dimensional depot will snap right on top of our storage container, and we can go ahead and use one of our conveyor lifts to automatically feed the items from our storage container into the dimensional depot. Now, if we pop on up here and take a look at it, we can see that it is uploading our reanimated SAM. We have 28 of them trying to be pushed into it, and we have 3 of 100 in our stockpile. Now, what this means is if we go into our inventory, we can now see the reanimated SAM within our dimensional depot tab, which we can shrink and expand in case we don't want it there. And then once we're able, we'll also be able to queue up items to upload down here at the bottom. If we want to use that SAM, again, that is available in the crafting menu straight away. We don't even have to do anything. You can see the purple bar on the recipe indicating that it would be drawing from the dimensional depot for the craft. But we also have the option of drawing it out of the depot and placing it directly into our inventory. So that is an option for us as well. And again, my plan is just to every time I pass by a crafting bench to craft up a few more SAM fluctuators, and as soon as I have enough to start working through some of these upgrades. Now, I'm not going to go too deep. We don't have enough Mercer spheres to get very deep into these trees, but probably at least one of each. And once that's done, then we'll also take a look at the other side of the tree, which includes, which is where the summer sloop upgrades are at. And we'll take a look at those a little bit later. And now that we have our power situation sorted and we have our dimensional depots unlocked, let's head on back to base and see what we can do about building a proper steel factory and finishing up phase 2 of this game. All right, now we are back here at base, and I had forgotten to hit record for a minute, so unfortunately I missed something that might be important. And that was over here in our MAM. I popped into the hard drive library and picked up 2 alternate recipes that we will be using, or maybe using, in the iron pipe, which allows us to make steel pipes out of just pure iron, and then also the steel rotor recipe, which allows rotors to be made from steel pipes and wiring. Now, rotors were already a pure iron recipe, but with iron pipe, they remain, but with the alternate here, that causes them to have the same ingredients as stators, which makes motor production, which is made from rotors and stators, much, much easier. And so those recipes pair very nicely, and we already had iron wire, so we'll be able to take advantage of that. Now, the other thing I've done has gone up to our space elevator, and you can see that we are starting to fill in some smart plating. All I've done is moved by hand a bunch of smart plating from our storage container up into some storage containers next to our space elevator. And those are just going to sort of trickle in and sort of tick that box off in terms of completing phase 2. It's one less thing to worry about, and we'll be able to fill these storage containers with the other components once we have crafting lines set up for them, but that will allow them to feed into our space elevator, so we're ready to send that off as soon as we can. Now, our first task for expanding our steel factory over here is actually going to be to tap this iron node over here. This is a pure iron node producing 240 ore per minute. We're going to take that ore, send that over into the tower, and use that to make a bunch of iron ingots. Now, with that iron wire and iron pipe recipe, we can use that to produce our motors. However, I think we actually have enough steel pipes. I was looking at the numbers on it. I think we're going to be just fine without using iron pipes for now. We may play with it a little bit more later on and see how we're doing with it. But for now, I think we'll be able to tap the iron pipe production we already have in place and use that, but we will be using the iron for iron wire, and that will produce the stators, rotors, and motors for us. Let's get into it. All right, and that is some motor production all complete. If we take a look, you can see we're building up a nice stockpile of motors already, and those are going to serve us well. I'm very pleased with this. Now, I did have to sort of break away from the modular factory design a little bit. I realized that one platform of iron wire wasn't going to cut it without making it tremendously long. We could have extended this one out way over our starter factory, but I wanted it to sort of stay contained with the tower. So I ended up using a second platform for iron wire production up here. And unfortunately, that greatly complicated logistics. I think the tower build is something that I really enjoyed doing, but as I do it more and more and start to see some of these nuances, I am less inclined to continue with it in future projects. But that aside, what we are doing is we are bringing in the iron from our miner across the way, sending it underneath our space elevator into a bank of 8 smelters, which is producing 240 iron ingots. Those 240 iron ingots are then coming over here and being sent up into this floor for production into iron wire. And then we are pairing that iron wire with the steel that we're producing down in our steel plant down below, or rather the steel pipes that we're producing down below, to come up here into these assemblers to produce our stators, and then also into these assemblers to produce our rotors. And those rotors and stators are then being sent upstairs to produce our motors. Now, unfortunately, 4 constructors, even overclocked, are not going to produce enough wire for this build, so we did have to set up 6 more up here, but everything should be perfectly tuned. I did notice we were having a little bit of stuttering. I think it might be down with our iron pipe production. I'm not sure what I have made a mistake down there with, but oh, these are I'll need to play around with this, but the ratios should be right. Oh yeah, okay. So our manifolds just haven't filled yet. This has, okay, so we're fine. Yeah, we're fine. The ratios are good. I know what I'm doing. All right. So we are producing our steel pipes and iron wire to produce our stators and rotors, and then sending them into motors. Let's head upstairs and take a look at our last production lines that we're going to be building in this factory. Now, you'll notice also that I haven't decorated anything yet. We're going to spend some time decorating at the end of this, but this style of factory takes a surprisingly, well, maybe not that surprising, but a long time to build. We've been at this for quite a while, but we have a couple more production lines that we still need to manage. And those are the automated wiring, which are made from stators and cable, and the versatile framework made from steel beams and modular frames. Now, in order to produce those at a decent rate, what we're going to be doing is bring in the rest of the coal that we're bringing in from our truck station all the way down there. We're currently only actually using half of the coal that we're shipping over, so we'll be bringing the rest in, as well as some iron from one of our nearby nodes. I think we may tap that one right there for this. And then combining those in a new smelting floor to produce the steel beams, to produce steel ingots, and then crafting those into steel beams. We'll be combining those steel beams with modular frames from our modular frame factory over there. Now, we are going to be piping those in through a subfloor in the factory and through the catwalk across the road there. And those will then be transported up to the correct floor in the central spire. Now, for our stators and cabling for our automated wiring, those will come from the remainder of our iron ingots. We're currently only using, I believe, 90 iron ingots. Is that right? 10 of these. So 100. We're currently using 125 iron ingots. We have 115 left over, and that should allow us to make enough stators and cables that we can produce our automated wiring. So this should be a pretty straightforward build. So let's go ahead and finish this up in the form of another time lapse. All right, and that is a steel factory all complete with production lines for automated wiring and for versatile frameworks, or I should say mostly complete. I don't think we're quite done decorating it, but I've reached a point where it was getting to be a little bit too tedious, a little bit too grindy, and burnout is a real thing in this game. And so as a rule, if I'm doing something and it stops being fun, then I take a break from it, because this game is too big to burn out halfway through phase 2 if I'm have any hope of completing it. You can see we are using the new elevators. With motor production, we were able to get those installed and use them, and the elevator music is everything that we wanted it to be, everything that the internet said it was. Oh, so cinematic. I love it. All right, and up here we can see our final production chains. Now, these are fairly straightforward. We are bringing in the remainder of the coal from our truck stop down below, as well as the iron from over by our modular frame factory right there, and sending those in. We're also bringing the modular frames from the catwalk. So the iron and the modular frames are coming in from the catwalk, and then the coal is coming in on a second belt line from our truck station down there. And those are coming in over here to... The iron and coal are coming here to these foundries to be turned into steel ingots, which are then being sent into this bank of constructors to produce steel beams. Those steel beams, as well as the modular frames, are being sent upstairs into a pair of assemblers, which are producing our versatile frameworks. And then the other production step is the remainder of the iron from down below is being sent up here and turned into both iron pipe and iron wire, which is producing stators. And you can see our stator line has backed up, but we are also taking some of that iron and turning it into cabling, which is then coming over here to produce automated wiring. And you can see we have a good amount of automated wiring now, enough to send off that part of our space elevator. Looks like we aren't quite there on the versatile frameworks yet, so we will let this system run for a bit longer. But let's pop down and drop in these automated wirings and take a look at the design. Now, I like the overall structure and shape of the build. Obviously, there are some very large open spaces that I think I probably want to fill in, at least partially, but I like sort of the combination of it being sort of mixed open air, but also still enclosed. I think it makes it okay to have things like foundries within the structure, to have some of these open sections nearby. It gives it a proper sense of ventilation. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the factory. Like I said, I think I intend to continue working on it at some point, but for now we can leave it be. Let's drop in our automated wiring here, get that sent into our space elevator. Now, there was one other thing that I did during this construction project, and that was popping over into the MAM and taking a look at some new research. You can see I've got a little setup here in the courtyard. And what we did is we dug in a little further in the alien technology tree. See, as I go, we've been crafting up SAM fluctuators as we're able, based on the reanimated SAM that we're getting from our dimensional depot. And that has allowed me to unlock the alien energy harnessing as well as the production amplifier. We've also gotten the first two upgrades to our dimensional depot itself. Now, the production amplifier, what that lets us do, if we come on over here, we can place a summer sloop inside of a structure and then use that. And what that'll do is it will increase the output of it, depending on what type of structure it is and what the recipe is. It might give us 1.5 or 2 or possibly some other values there. But if we want to make power shards, for example, with this output multiplier in, instead of getting 1 power shard per slug, we'll get 2. And so you can see this has allowed us to build up a huge stockpile of power shards. And so if we take a look at this, you can see we've got 4 in there now. We've put in 4 power slugs, and those should each produce 2 new power shards. There you go. You can see them coming down the line. And the purple smoke indicating that this is a slooped machine and is giving us a production boost. Now, using summer sloops in this way is tremendously valuable for these really hard to do or limited resources, things like power shards Or for things like the alien DNA, where if we come on over here, you can see that we have tons and tons of alien proteins, or remains rather. So these 100 spitter remains, if we were to craft those into alien protein and then into DNA capsules by hand, we would get 100 DNA capsules. But if we use a summer slooped constructor to turn them into the alien protein, we would actually turn 50 remains into 200. We would actually turn each stack of 50 remains into 100 protein. We would double it. And then if we use a slooped machine to turn that 100 protein into DNA capsules, we would actually get 200 capsules. So we can increase our yield by 4 times, and that's going to greatly help us increase the number of tickets we're getting out of the awesome shop, because we're getting to a point where sort of normal craftables aren't going to be doing much for us for a while. Now, while our factory continues to work on those versatile frameworks, there is one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the modular design of the factory. This is the first time I've done a modular design in a very long time, and the reason for that is because I didn't actually enjoy the first one very much. It was when the Dune Desert first came out, I think back in update 3 or 4, and I built a sort of mile-long factory that was just a mega bus of conveyors and then stuff branching off on one side. I built the bus of conveyors along the cliffs there, and then had factory production lines sticking out into the desert. And it was fun. It taught the basics of the game very well, but it was not satisfactory to me. It didn't have the grand appeal that the game has now. And I'm trying to get upstairs so I can show you guys what I mean. I will say though that this logistics nest, when we can go through this and everything, all the conveyor belts are moving and everything is active and in motion around us, that feels really good. Like, this feels like what Satisfactory is supposed to feel like to me. But what I struggle with is that at a glance, at a distance, you can't tell what's happening here. If we look at this factory from the outside, from a third-person perspective, let's get over here and do this, then there's no clear orientation to the factory other than that production generally flows upwards. There's no way to sort of pick out that, okay, maybe we can say this is iron is coming here and being smelted into iron ingots, and then where does it go? Does it go into some constructors? It just kind of gets lost in the logistics nest, and the mapping out of the different production lines is not obvious. If we compare that to something like our starter factory, we can see that, well, we're mining iron and sending that into smelters, and then that's being sent into some constructors, and the outputs of those constructors are feeding into an assembler. And so it's all laid out and easy to see, easy to understand. It's almost like a circuit board, which to me feels a lot better to have in the world. And so I think that this is more the factory style I will be going with going forward. I have enjoyed doing this build, and I may continue this particular one, especially with heavy modular frames. I think it'd be nice to add a heavy modular frame production as sort of a capstone piece on top, but I don't think I'll be doing any more modular towers in this same way. Although I do really like the idea of it, and I'm very pleased with how this one turned out. But it is done. It is working. Everything is correctly ratioed, and we are producing our versatile framework. So let's go ahead and let this run for a little bit, get these versatile frameworks stocked up, and then we can finish off today's episode by sending off our space elevator and seeing what we will have next time. All right. Now, our factory has been running for a little bit, and I think if we take a look, yes, we have enough versatile frameworks to send off our space elevator. Let's pick up 1,000 of these and then head on over and get this sent away. Pop on down to our space elevator over here. Get them sent away. could just chuck them all in here, but that actually wouldn't be very efficient because we can fill as fast as our different belts are. Actually, do we even need to do that? Can you still load them in manually? Oh yeah, we can just load them in manually. Okay, well, beautiful. All right, let's get this space elevator sent away. I always love the animations, little videos that play here. All right, and with phase 2 all complete, I think we can go ahead and tick off our final task and take a look at what we have next. Here in Tier 5, we have the jetpack. That's very exciting. And oil processing. So we'll finally be able to start working with crude oil and plastic and rubber and fuel. We'll also be able to get some packaging work done, as well as power and advanced logistics, which are all going to be great. That'll let us move into industrial manufacturing and trains. This is all very exciting. I can't wait. So I think that is where we are going to leave it for today. We have managed to make some huge amounts of progress. We have plenty of power to last us until we get fuel power up and running. And our steel factory is complete and chugging away with all the resources we need to get started with our next milestone. Now, our next episode is going to be focused on opening up some of these milestones and playing around with them. And some of this may occur during a live stream. So that'll be highlighted in the next episode, but that's going to happen the day after this video releases on Friday, the 18th of July. And so if you are around, if you're available, I'd love if you could pop in. We'll be going from 6 p.m. CST to probably around 10 p.m. And last time we had a ton of fun. I'd love to see some more community members there, get to meet y'all and play some Satisfactory. And we might also be playing some other things too. But I think that is where we are going to leave it for today. I'd like to thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me here in the world of Satisfactory. I do hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and I hope that it has made your day just a little bit better. If it has, I would love if you could like the episode and subscribe if you would like to see more. As always, my name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an efficient day. I will see you soon.